Hello and welcome to this After Effects certification preparation series of videos. I'm Luisa Winters. In this video, I'd like to discuss Objective 2.4a, which is to import media from various sources. So we're going to import regular video, photos, Photoshop, Illustrator files, and other types of files. We're going to discuss what happens when you import these files and how to use them properly. All right, let's get to it. So let's go on to After Effects, and I would like to revert to my saved project so that all the stuff that I changed won't be affecting this anymore. And let's start by importing video files. So you see how you have a folder called video files, and like I said before, I may ask you to do this, and now I am asking you to do this. Let's go ahead and delete all of the video files, and you're going to get a warning. It's just going to say, hey, wait a minute, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Now we're going to import some video files. So File, Import, File, multiple files from library, blah, blah, blah. So we're just going to go File, and now we're going to go to where the video files are. So go to where you saved the exercise files, go on to video files, select all of them, Control A will do that, or Command A will do that, click OK, and now your videos are being imported. You can also create a new folder and you can put them in there. So I'm just going to press and hold the Control key, which is Command on the Mac, select them, and then I can simply name this Video Files 2. And in After Effects, you can rename most things by selecting it and then pressing Enter or Return. So that's how you import these video files. So if you want to import audio files, it's the same thing. So I'm just going to use the shortcut, which is Control I, Command I on the Mac. Select the audio files, etc., etc. And in here, you can see which files you can import onto After Effects. Quite a bit, right? I'm going to cancel out of this because I want to talk about Illustrator and Photoshop files. So I'm going to delete these two, and I'm going to import an Illustrator file. I'm going to start with logo, and then I'm going to go to vines. When you select a multi-layered Illustrator file and you import it into After Effects just goes, hey, what do you want me to do with this? Do you want to merge the layers? Do you want to bring it in as a composition? If you merge the layers, well, there you go. You have your file, which I'm just going to put inside of that folder, and that's it. But if you import it, and I'm going to do the same file again, as a composition, you can bring in the layers either as a layer size or document size. So if I choose layer size, do you see how now I not only have my Illustrator layers, which are here, they're called logo layers, but I also have a logo composition, which I can open by double-clicking it. There you go. Each and every Illustrator layer is going to be a layer here in After Effects. And that's kind of important. Now, I want you to notice where the anchor point is on each one of the layers. So large triangle, see, it's in the middle of the triangle. The medium is in the middle of the triangle, the small the same, and the text is the same. All of these things are in the middle of the layer. But look what happens. I'm just going to import the same file again. Look what happens when I say, hey, no, each layer is going to be the size of the document. I have now a composition called Logo 2. Watch where the anchor points are. All of the anchor points are in the middle of the composition itself and not in the middle of the layer. So it's the same even if you import, say, this Vines document, which is also multi-layered. Say you just want to choose footage. Choose which layer you want. Oh, I only want Vines 5. Doesn't matter, right? Or merge all of the layers, right? Or bring it in as a composition and you have the same choices that you had before. I'm just going to cancel out of this. And now I'm just going to import a Photoshop file, right? Before I do that, I'm just going to go File, Revert, I don't want to inadvertently save on top of this. So now I have the original one. And I'm not going to delete these now. I'm just going to import Photoshop file, and I'm going to import the logo. It is exactly the same logo, but in this case, it's a Photoshop file. So notice that it's slightly different. I can import it as footage, in which case, hey, choose whatever layer you want to choose. I can import it as composition, in which case it's going to import the file and create a composition with those layers, or retain layer sizes, which is the one that I always use. But look at the difference here. I can have editable layer styles. Yes, Photoshop layer styles will be editable here in After Effects. Or you can just merge the layer styles into the footage. I don't know why I would want to merge them. I always want to edit them because then I can animate them in here. So this is what I almost always use. So editable layer styles and composition retain layer sizes. Now I have my composition with my layers, and look where the anchor point is. Just to prove a point, if I import it again and I choose composition without retaining the layer sizes, then the anchor point is in the middle of the composition and not in the middle of each and every layer. And that makes a huge difference. There are other types of files that you can bring in. One of the important ones, for me anyway, is the hyperlapses. So you can just go to the folder called Hyperlapse, choose one of those JPEGs, just one, and make sure that the JPEG sequence option is selected here, imported as footage, and you can tell it to create a composition, although I never do. Click on import, and now that hyperlapse, which is no more than a series of stills, opens like a video clip. I can even right click it, new comp from selection, I can play it, and that is the hyperlapse that we're talking about. So it's very convenient. I can even scrub it, and this is going to look and act like a video clip and not like a series of stills. There are other types of files that we can import. So file, import. I can import an Adobe Premiere Pro project. So that's kind of important, right? I can import from my libraries, and here is the library. I have the branch stick, I have something called Car on Bridge, and I can simply put it here in the timeline, and it's going to add it to my project, and that's directly from my library, which is hosted on Adobe servers. So that's not too bad, not too shabby. I have an Illustrator file that I can import in here, and there you have. There you have it. So, there are many things that I can import, including, and this one is kind of important, Photoshop Vanishing Point. This goes way beyond what the test is going to cover you on, but this is kind of cool. If you've ever used Vanishing Point in Photoshop, make sure that you save it as an After Effects Vanishing Point thing and then import it into After Effects and talk about something cool. I can also import a placeholder or a solid. And by the way, there's no difference between file and multiple files. If I choose file, I can choose multiple. So there's no difference in there. Alrighty, one of the last things that I want to cover is Adobe Dynamic Link. In here, I can create a new Premiere Pro sequence, which later on I can import directly into Premiere, or I can import a Premiere sequence directly into here. So how I usually work is that I have Premiere open, and then I send clips from Premiere to After Effects via Adobe Dynamic Link, and then I send them, that automatically sends them back to Premiere Pro. More on that a little bit later. And here it's important to understand that none of these files are part of the After Effects project. They all live where they live. So I can just go in here and right click, and I can say Reveal in Explorer, and it's going to show me in my hard drive where that file is. Because we're not really bringing anything into After Effects, we're just creating links between what is in After Effects and what is in your hard drive. So if you delete something from your hard drive, and I'm going to go ahead and do that, I'm going to delete, say, the logo file, the Photoshop logo file. I'm going to restore it later. If I go back to After Effects just says, hey, wait a minute. What did you do? What did you do? I can't find it. And now it's going to show as a unlinked file. See it? That it looks like yay. I can right click it. I can replace it. If I choose reload, it's just going to say it's just not there, right? Unless I go back, right click it, restore it. And now when I go back into After Effects, I can just say reload it and it should find it. All right, so it's not working with a reload. It should, but it doesn't matter. If it doesn't, if this happens to you and it's not working, right click it again and now go to replace, choose the exact same file, and then I'm just going to merge all the layers, and then there you go. All right, so you can pretty much restore, you can reload any of these files if you inadvertently delete them, or if you're going from one project to another project, and or you send your project to somebody else and the files don't get linked properly. So it's important to understand that After Effects is completely non-destructive. You can't harm any of the original clips inside of After Effects. All right, I would like to end by saying that you can just click and drag directly from Finder or File Explorer. So if I go to File Explorer and I want to open, say, these audio files, say Winter, right? I can just drag it from Explorer or Finder, and there it is. I can preview. So it's pretty easy, and you can also do it with folders and that sort of thing. So last but not least, if I double click any of these, notice that it opens in the footage panel. This is not the layer panel. This is not the composition panel. This is the footage panel. And if I open something that contains time, like music or a video file, I can set in and out points in here. So that's the in point, that's the out point. And then when I add that to a sequence, only the in to the out will be part of that layer. Because you can edit in After Effects. I wouldn't, because this allows the editor, but you can edit in here. So one thing that I do want to talk about is metadata. So there is a metadata panel. So if you go in the window, metadata, and you can see the metadata of whatever you happen to have selected. So in the files, you can have things like basic metadata. Yeah, see how it tells you the creation date, where it was created from. If you change these, see this was created in Adobe Media Encoder in 4/18/2020. And there are other metadata that you can fill out, like the Dublin core, etc., etc. You can also do a little bit of rights management in here. You can add a certificate, you can mark it, you can put who the owner is, and all of that good stuff. That goes a little bit beyond the scope of what the test is, but all of these columns in here are part of metadata. So if you right-click any of the column headers, in other words, the name of the column, you can go to the column and you can choose which columns you want to see and which ones you don't want to see. So you could look into that metadata. Now, don't forget that you can use it. You can right-click one of the clips and you can select New Comp from Selection, but you can also replace it with a pre-composition. More on that later. You can create a proxy, you can set a proxy, and of course you can interpret the footage. We already discussed replace and reload footage, but interpret footage, we talked about it in a much earlier movie. So if I select this and then click on this icon for footage, for interpret footage, it's the same as going here and then choosing interpret footage main. So this panel opens up and you can change things like if this had an alpha channel, you can choose to ignore it. You can change it from straight to pre-multiplied. The most important thing is that you can change the frame rate. And this is particularly important if you shoot something at a very high frame rate, say 120 frames per second, you want to play it back at 30 because you want to play it back 4 times slower, this is where you would do that. And of course, you can also change the start time code of the clip, and you can change the pull down as well. There are other options, mainly the square versus non-square pixels. That is becoming less and less a problem because most pixels that, well, all the pixels that I've worked with in the last 3-4 years have been square. So you can do footage interpretation and all of that good stuff directly from the project panel. So just to reiterate, you can find replace. So we talked about finding. See this little search thing here. So I can go to winter, for example. Ooh, not winters, that's my last name. So, and now anything with the word winter in its name will be in here. So look at the logo 2 layers. They're showing the classic symbol of, hey, I don't know where they are. So I can select those and I can say, hey, reload the footage, and notice that it finds it immediately. That was the Photoshop file that I deleted before, and then I restored. So of course, is finding it. And this brings me to the end of this video. And not just to the end of this video, but to the end of Objective 2. In the next video, we're going to start with Objective 3. So hey, we have 2 of them done. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.